Sure, absolutely. All right, so representing the applicant.
Keith Woodruff from
Keith,
Engineering.
If you want to come here,
Oh, yeah, that's
let me get it on the record, we have the mic here also.
Keith Woodruff from Engineering and Surveying Properties, as well as Neil Alexander from Cuddy and Fetter.
Try that again.
Keith Woodruff from Engineering and Surveying Properties, and Neil Alexander from Cuddy and Fetter.
Thank you. So we will go into comments. We're going to just change this up because our board members, our professionals. Okay, so we're going to do applicant to discuss project before we start seeking.
Property is located at 5761 Old Forge Road. It's a 7.01 acre piece of property of two tax parcels, 83-1-2 and 83-1-5.1. The properties are shown on the plans in the red line. The property in question was purchased from NYU in 2021, for which NYU put it up on sale around 2018. Since 2018 until the property changed hands in 2021, it sat dormant with no use or occupancy. The applicant prepared an application to the board in December of 2023 for the occupancy of the existing 87,000 square foot building, for which it's a mix of a 2- and 3-story type of construction, brick and mortar. The front building being the original construction in the 1920s. The second phase of the building construction was done in the 1960s, and the subsequent 3-story portion at the rear was constructed in the 1970s. NYU operated the facility as the Nelson Institute of Environmental Medicine. The property in question is in the LC zone. It's also within the Ridgeline Overlay District and the Biodiversity Conservation District. The reoccupancy of the property is an approved use within the town zoning code as use number 84 as an institution of higher learning. As proposed, we are going to utilize the existing parking facility, which is currently split between the existing building and the lower parking lot, which NYU had constructed over the years of their operation. There currently is the existing 3 curb cuts, 2 in the upper portion and 1 in the lower portion for the lower parking lot. As calculated on the plans, we anticipate a required 63 parking spaces to support the 23 teachers, 12 administrative staff, 8 support staff, and 20 possible visitors, for which we are providing 78 parking spaces, inclusive of 4 ADA or a handicap accessible parking spaces split up at 2 different locations. The proposed improvements, there's 5 areas of impervious expansion as shown on the plans in pink, for which there's a 2.56 acres of existing impervious on the 7.01 acre property. Those 5 acres of impervious expansion will add approximately 2,055 square feet of impervious surfaces. To offset that additional impervious, we will be removing one area for which the lower part of the parking lot was previously gravel of approximately 11,396 square feet, or 0.26 acres, which is shown in blue on those plans as well. The total area of disturbance for the development of the property will be 0.37 acres, for which it's under the 1 acre threshold, which would require stormwater mitigation, treatment, and design in accordance with the New York State DEC. We've submitted subsequent environmental studies for which the board has reviewed, as well as a Part 1, the Part 1, Part 2 draft, and a Part 3 draft for which the board has also reviewed.
Absolutely, thank you, Keith. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to let our professionals that work for the town of Warwick go through. We'll start with Danielle and Max from Nelson Pofories. They are our planners, as I mentioned earlier, to discuss the seeker process to this project. Max.
Okay, so this application started, this version of this application started in January of 2024 when the board adopted a resolution determining that this was a type 1 action. The applicant had been suggesting that this is actually a type 2 action. Type 2 actions are not subject to seeker at all. The applicant had suggested that there were 6 type 2 actions that would apply to this. The board, upon further consideration, felt that this was actually a type 1 action, and we proceeded under that assumption. So after declaring it a type 1 action, the applicant went out and prepared the Part 1 environmental assessment form. This is the form that is available online, and it provides the project sponsor's answers to a predetermined number of questions that all projects in New York State must address. That document was reviewed by this board, and after receipt of that, the board distributed that document to all involved agencies. At that time, it had identified the Zoning Board, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and the Orange County Department of Health as other agencies that have permitting authority over this action. Since then, the Zoning Board has been eliminated as an agency that is involved. It was originally thought that there might need to be an interpretation made as to whether this qualified as an institution of higher learning or as a private school. That question had been resolved. On September 18th of 2024, they distributed that document to all those involved agencies. At the request of the applicant, that mailing was also distributed to several interested agencies and parties. We had received comment from a number of local organizations, and so we have copied them on the seeker. It's an extra step. So that included the Town of Tuxedo Planning Board, the PIPC, the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, the Warwick Town Board, the Orange County Department of Planning, Orange County Department of Public Works, the New York State Education Department, the Town of Warwick Police, the Tuxedo Union Free School District, the Tuxedo Fire District, the Greenwood Lake EMS District, the Sterling Forest Partnership, the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and the Open Space Institute. After 30 days had run on this notice, we had received no objections to this board assuming lead agency status. Under SEQR, or State Environmental Quality Review, this board is responsible for reviewing the potential environmental impacts of this project and determining whether or not an EIS will be required for preparation or for consideration of this project. On November 20th of last year, 2024, the Planning Board adopted an EAF Part 2. That is the next step in SEQR. That explains what potential moderate to large impacts could occur and should be explored further by the board. They identified impacts to land, groundwater, plants and animals, aesthetic resources, historic and archaeological resources, open space and recreation, transportation and traffic, energy, noise, odor, and light, impact on human health, and consistency with community character. After that, the board asked the applicant to prepare a draft Part 3 document. The Part 3 is necessary to look at all of these potential moderate and large impacts and describe the magnitude, which includes factors such as severity, size and extent of the impact, importance in terms of geographic scope, duration, probability of occurrence, number of people affected, and any other additional environmental consequences. It also talks about any design elements that have been incorporated into the project to address these. And lastly, a reasoning as to why or why not a significant adverse environmental impact may result. The threshold in New York State for requiring an EIS under SEQR is that you have identified at least one significant adverse environmental impact that is likely to occur as a result of the project. So that is the course and the process that the Planning Board has been conducting since last summer, essentially, summer of 2024. The applicant had provided a Part 3 draft. The board had reviewed that, had discussed it at some workshops. I'm sure some of you out there have been at our workshops where these have been discussed. The board asked for more information, particularly with regard to threatened and endangered species, potential significant natural communities or habitats near to the site, the history of site remediation and environmental site assessments, and information on potential fiscal impacts to community services. So that supplemental information was provided in March, just last month of this year. And based on that information, we revised our draft Part 3. So the applicant provided the first draft. We then went in, modified it to reflect our discussions and understandings of the application and the discussions held by the planning board. Additionally, seeker requires that if there are significant project changes, that you give those involved agencies an additional shot to comment on those changes. While this project didn't undergo any significant changes, we still felt it was important to circulate that. What had changed over that course was the proposed site lighting. In response to concerns by the planning board, the applicant has subdued their lighting and are proposing a warmer color temperature, which is more friendly to wildlife, 2700 K color temperatures. They have made numerous changes to their environmental notes throughout the plan sets. They've incorporated park benches as requested by Orange County Planning, and they removed parking space to retain a significant white pine tree that was identified as important on the site. So based on those project changes, the board then recirculated this project to all the involved agencies. No agency responded with any additional concerns in response to that. Many of you out there have written us. Every single email that has come to this board has been reviewed and compiled and looked at for potential additional environmental concerns that may not have been covered by the board originally. We got some today, so we are still going through those as we are proceeding with this process. If the board finds that there is something that they hadn't considered, seeker requires them to consider those issues and include them in their determination of whether or not this project is going to require an EIS. So some of the overall considerations that probably aren't clear to sort of the quick glance at the project that I think are important to consider here are that the applicant is actually only going to disturb 0.37 acres of the site on a temporary basis to construct additional, not even construct additional parking, but to realign the parking to make it more circulation friendly and safe for vehicles. There is the possibility that they may need to temporarily disturb some of the natural areas of the site to repair or replace or supplement their wastewater sewer connection. That would be approximately 5,000 square feet of disturbance, but that would be a temporary disturbance. Once it was installed, that area would be naturalized over time. Additionally, the applicant is proposing the removal of 11,000 square feet of parking area. It is likely that more natural meadow, lawn, vegetated area will exist after the project is completed than was there before the project was completed. So the project sponsor has clarified that all students, the applicant is proposing up to 200 students, and has consented to all of these operational limitations being imposed as conditions of approval map notes to be enforceable by the town. They're proposing no more than 200 adult male students that will arrive on the site approximately once per month and leave once per month. They will only have daily arrivals by the staff, the faculty, and they're estimating approximately 20 visitors. These are numbers that are informed. They do have an existing facility in the town of Ramapo that have informed how these operations will occur. No families will reside on the site, so there will not be people coming to and from the site. You will only have the adult students living there. With regard to specific environmental impacts that I identified previously, I think Mike Musso, who's from HDR, will address some contamination concerns. Laura is going to talk about some parking concerns. In terms of other impacts, it's noted that the disturbance of land is actually fairly limited and should be controllable through best management practices. The town engineer will be reviewing a stormwater pollution prevention plan to ensure that erosion and sedimentation doesn't occur. With regard to water supply, the applicant will be, in fact, as many of you noted, doubling the usage of water in this district. They will be going currently from a 13,863 gallon per day usage to they'll be adding an 18,000 gallon per day use to that. However, this water system is estimated by DEC, or Sterling Lake is estimated by DEC to have a safe withdrawal of 500,000 gallons per day. So they're permitted in that water district to take 500,000 gallons per day out of Sterling Lake. Even after this project, they'll be at 6% of that. With regard to the aquifer, the applicant is proposing the removal of underground storage tanks. Again, Mike Musso will touch upon that. Those underground storage tanks, before they're removed and remediated, have the potential to impact the aquifer. With regard to impacts on plants and animals, the planning board through the DEC mapper or EAF mapper had identified several species, the northern long-eared bat, timber rattlesnake, eastern smallfoot myotis, as well as 2 habitat types, the hemlock northern hardwood forest and Appalachian oak hickory forest. They asked the applicant to retain a ecological specialist to review that. They did provide a report that was peer-reviewed by HDR, the town's engineering firm. Additionally, we have received comments from some of you, as well as from PIPC, the Sterling Forest Partnership, indicating additional species that should be investigated. We asked the applicant to invest those species, including the peregrine falcon, bald eagle, short-eared owl, pied-billed grebe, least bittern, golden-winged warbler, whippoorwill, and common nighthawk. Those have been supplemented and have been addressed in the EAF Part 3 that is available on the website. Additionally, the applicant is proposing certain conditions to help eliminate impacts to the species and habitat in the area. First, all tree clearing of trees greater than 5 inches caliper will occur between November 1st and March 31st. But the applicant has actually looked at the areas of disturbance and doesn't believe that there are actually trees over 5 inches in those areas. But if they are, they will come down in the DEC permitted period. The applicant will be installing snake fence, a timber rattlesnake fence around the entire site, and will be hiring and employing a timber rattlesnake monitor who will be on site when the fence is installed during all construction and at the end when the fence is removed. Additionally, as we described previously, the lighting in the project had been reduced and made dark sky friendly and more animal friendly by reducing the color temperature. The habitat sites that were mentioned do not exist on site. However, they do exist in the park and not far from the site, and the applicant has amended their landscape plan to only add species of the type that are appropriate for those habitats. So they have matched up that. With regard to aesthetics and community character, the applicant is not proposing any architectural changes to the facades of those buildings. The facades of those buildings, the applicant is proposing to replace in kind. Again, with the native landscaping, the applicant has provided documentation from the State Historic Preservation Office that there will be no impact to archaeological resources or historic resources as a result of this project. Additionally, with regard to impact on transportation, we mentioned previously the applicant will be required to bring students to and from the site by bus. And they have offered that, so that will be a condition of the plan. And Laura, you'll go over the traffic. Mike Musso will go over the contamination potential. The applicant was asked to look at impacts to emergency services. They looked at their existing facility. The existing facility when it was in operation, so we're talking not about their facility, we're talking about this facility when it was still in operation, resulted in 17 calls for service from 2010 through 2018, while their Muncie school facility between 2020 and 25 resulted in 25 calls for emergency services. Additionally, the applicant has said that they are going to hire and employ professionals on the site during daytime hours that are trained in healthcare, fire, safety, and security. With that, I think I probably have talked enough, and I will cede over to Laura to go over other issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Or you want Mike to take, Mike, why don't you take your section over to Laura?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Mike Musso. I'm a senior technical advisor with HDR. I work with Laura Barca. Laura brought me into this project and the group I work with to look specifically at environmental conditions. You've heard a few of those from Max as pertaining to SECRA, threatened and endangered species, impacts on the aquifer, et cetera. What I've been looking at on this site, and first got involved in 2023, is looking at recognized environmental conditions that might exist at the site based on historic use. The site has been active for some time. Before I get into my summary, just to give you a little bit of a background, myself and the group I work with, we've done numerous types of property assessments. You're going to hear some acronyms from me tonight maybe, and I apologize for that. But a phase 1 or phase 2 ESA, environmental assessment, is something that's paramount to a property transfer process. We've done a lot of those, and in this case, we reviewed the work that was done by others over time. Our group does a lot of investigation. We go out boots on the ground, we collect soil or air or water samples as need be. We look at exposures to human health and the environment. We manage and interpret data, compare it to appropriate standards and levels and criteria. And we also do a lot of remediation or cleanup when it comes to it, and also managing sites over the long term. Most of our work, I want to note, at HDR in our group is not for private developers. Most of our work that we do is for governmental entities. Might be in the Brownfields program of repurposing sites for EPA or the New York State DEC. Could be working for a county. I've worked not only in Warwick, but for a number of New York State municipalities on similar types of issues. Like I said, I got involved at the site and started looking at documentation from 2023. I personally have been to the site a couple times with the planning board members for site walks. I've interfaced with the applicant representatives, requesting information, reviewing it, and summarizing and digesting it for the board. So a couple of the key things we looked at the time of the property transfer from New York University, there was a robust document put together called a Phase 1 ESA. So this is something that's not just thrown together. It's done by a process that could stand up to scrutiny by lending institutions, by financial, and also by prospective purchasers of the property. It's meant to be transparent. It's meant to disclose environmental conditions that exist. It's done by environmental professionals. In this case, NYU hired a company called TRC, a national company that I'm familiar with. They not only do site visits and inspections as part of that report, there's also an independent environmental database. And if you really want to fall asleep at night, you look through one of these reports because it's about 1,000 pages of output that will look not only at the subject property, but 1, 3, and 5 mile radius of anything that might be happening. And it flags anything that might light up on the state's DEC database or the US EPA's database. All that was included. There was also historic maps and aerial photos that were looked at. HDR looked at all of this independently when it came in. Do want to indicate, though, this is based on a process that's established. So we're used to looking at those types of reports. We're used to digesting what's found. The key things from that report that I took away is that there were no identified recognized environmental conditions, RECs. There were historic recognized environmental conditions in the form of petroleum bulk storage, building materials that exist in an old building like this. You're going to have things like lead-based paint. You're going to have asbestos that needs to be fully remediated. Again, that's all inside the building. The underground and above ground storage tanks is something we inquired about. Those, of course, are outside the buildings. We did look and follow up independently with the New York State DEC on that. So a record that was identified, there were rather large, as you might suspect, heating oil tanks, fuel tanks, much bigger than the ones we have at home. Certainly that could be 500 gallons or less. These were 20,000 and 10,000 gallon sizes. 5 underground storage tanks at the time of the property transfer were identified. 3 had already been closed or removed. There were 3 above ground storage tanks. So if you drive by the site, you might see them. However, 2 have been closed and removed. We wanted to look back a little bit more at this. We looked through what's called a petroleum bulk storage registry that the UST has. And one thing that struck me is that all the documentation really easily checked out. That's not always the case when we get involved in these sites. And I think it's important just to note, working for institutions like we do, school districts or universities, New York University is extremely risk adverse. They're very sensitive. If they're divesting a property, especially with some of the past uses, they want to be very diligent on what they leave behind and what they don't leave behind. So they had actually removed those tanks. The spill numbers were closed out with the DEC. We confirmed that independently. I also note that they did some abatement on their own. Not uncommon during a property transaction, but they hired reputable asbestos, lead, and mold firms to come in and at least do pretty clean sweep of the building. They got rid of their storage of chemicals, things that would run the boilers, some of the chemical uses that they've had at the site, etc. And then the applicant kind of got involved, of course, as the site was sitting vacant and the property transaction was happening. There was a couple of the tanks that weren't closed out in that 2017 report. However, the applicant submitted a UST closure report. Everything checks out on our books with those petroleum storage tanks above ground and underground. We've also looked at the closure report. It included soil and groundwater testing. So nothing lit up in our mind as far as current use or future potential use of the site in terms of any detectable levels that we found. So going here, I was also brought in, or going on from this point, I was also brought in to look at the site plan. We made suggestions for notes that have to run on the site plan, environmental notes. Some of those relate to what Max talked about with SECRA, with rattlesnake monitoring, et cetera, tree protection. But we added a series of 10 to 15 notes that very much prescribe the applicable rules and regulations, the agencies like the DEC, like the Department of Labor that manages and administers asbestos abatement for anything in the future that needs to be done. We reference building materials that might remain, whether they're waste chemicals or old mercury switches in electrical equipment or fuse boxes. This is typical of an old building. Importantly, in speaking with the planning board, there is a protocol in place for any environmental work regarding notifications to the agency, but as importantly, scheduling with the building department here. Those notes are now on the site plan and need to run with that. There will be submittals, for example. After any additional asbestos abatement is taken care of, that report has to be submitted within a time frame to the town of Warwick for review. In speaking to the planning board chair, HDR is available, of course, to review all this, but as importantly, will be available also to have real boots on the ground, to do our own documentation on behalf of the board. So that's kind of an overview of the topics that we're looking at. I think the takeaways are that the registration, historically, of tanks and practices that need to be registered with the state agencies were done. There's been a large amount of abatement, tank removal, soil sampling, endpoint sampling testing done by NYU before divesting the site, but also by the applicant representatives here. And everything appears to cross-check on our end, at least as this information goes. And then moving forward, we feel that the notes have been added to the site plan are robust. We feel they make sense. And we feel that they're diligent in terms of any kind of reporting of conditions or just reporting when stages of work are completed as the applicant would move on should this application be approved. So that's all I have.
Good evening, my name is Laura Barca. I represent HDR Engineering, the planning board engineer for the town of Warwick. Relating to stormwater, Max touched upon it. There are 5 different locations of 5 minor disturbances. The total sum of those disturbances will be 0.37 acres. That is all that is proposed to be disturbed. And again, the reason for that is to kind of square off the parking lot areas to make them safer, to provide better circulation throughout the area. The SWIP. It is on. Sorry, is that, okay, sorry about that. So there's 5 different areas in the, that will be disturbed. They're all related to parking area disturbances. The total area of those disturbances will be 0.37 acres. And the reason for those disturbances is to square off the corners where the ground, where the vegetation has come into those areas, and to make those areas safer for circulation of the traffic. The stormwater itself, because the total area of disturbance is 0.37 acres. The SWIP itself is limited to erosion and sediment control, and HDR is reviewing that on the site plans as well. And again, as Max stated earlier, that the change in impervious surfaces is actually a net decrease of 0.21 acres for the sole reason of one of the lower parking areas is being removed and allowed to return to nature, to its natural condition. The water and the sewer, the water and sewer demand is on an average daily basis approximately 18,000 gallons per day. The town, the applicant received, and submitted to the town, what they call a water willingness to serve letter and a sewer willingness to serve letter, and from the entity that operates these facilities. And what that means is it's not a carte blanche. You can, turn on the faucets and start tomorrow. It still requires Orange County Health Department review and approval for any improvements that are in there. And in both of these cases, the operator of the two facilities is requiring the applicant to assist with upgrades to those facilities that the town will be monitoring. Again, all that will be done under the review and approval of Orange County Health Department, DEC, if it's applicable, but the town will be involved in knowing what's going on all the time in that situation. As far as the traffic, the planning board requested that a complete traffic report be conducted. Creighton Manning Engineering prepared a traffic report and a trip generation assessment report that was received by the planning board and reviewed specifically by traffic engineers with my company. The average combined vehicles per day on that road currently is 172 vehicles per day. It's anticipated that the 200 proposed students will be shuttled to the site, but that's actually there'll be a note on the plan that the students, when they come once a month, they will be bused there. Any of the teachers, the administrative staff, the support staff, they in the traffic study, they will be coming, on a day-to-day basis. But the students themselves will be, and it's estimated that there will be 4 50-passenger buses. So part of what my company has done in our overall site plan review is looking at, is making sure that these buses can, arrive on site safely, that they have the turning radius to get in, to get out of the parking areas, to be able to deliver the students safely to that. That was traffic. And I have one more. That was it. All right. Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Mike. Mr. Krahulik is our attorney. He will speak to the legal issues, the zoning.
All right, I guess it's my job to explain whether or not this use is permitted in this zoning district and why. Try not to get too technical. The property is located in the LC zoning district. LC stands for Land Conservation. Under Use Group 84 in the town code, institutions of higher learning are permitted in the LC district. Prior examples of similar applications can be examined. There was an application by King's College to build a college campus on the former International Nickel property. Touro University also proposed a college campus on that same site. Ultimately was developed by what we now know as the Watchtower organization. All 3 of those applications contemplated some form of residential housing as a part of the institution of higher learning. There are some limitations, however. The code requires a minimum of 5 acres of land in order to get approval for an institution of higher learning, plus 1 additional acre for each 100 students. The applicant has just over 7 acres. Using the formula, the maximum number of students is 200. There's been some concern about future growth and expansion of this use. Based on this formula, 200 will be the maximum in perpetuity. People have also asked about the opportunity to buy more land and expand elsewhere. The parcel is completely surrounded by Sterling Forest Parkland. There are no land acquisition opportunities that would allow them to grow and increase the number of students on this particular campus. No variances are required by the applicant in order to obtain approval. The applicant did seek a variance to increase the amount of impervious space to improve parking and traffic circulation. That variance application was denied, but that's not necessary for the applicant to obtain approval. There will be no children residing on the property. There will be no impact on the Tuxedo School District. Emergency services will be provided by the Greenwood Lake Fire Department and by the Tuxedo Fire Department pursuant to an interagency agreement. About the number of residents residing on the property. Again, they will be all adults. There'll be no children. There'll be no impact on the school district. Other examples of this can be seen at Watchtower, where again, there are adult residential facilities, no impact on the school district, as well as the town of Tuxedo approved residential housing in the former International Paper facility. Again, no impact on the school district. We have received further comment over the last few days. I want to assure everybody that they will all be reviewed, they will all be addressed. Some of the comments received are just factually incorrect. For example, we received an important letter from the Palisades Interstate Park Commission. The letter suggests that the property is located in the Sterling Forest Bird Conservation Area. That's not true. It's not located in that conservation area. So we will do our best to examine all the issues raised. We will review all the issues to see whether or not they are credible and important. And before the board votes, everything will be considered.
Thank you, Bob. At this time, we're going to open it up to the public. We do have a sign-up sheet, which I have here. I would just... I'm sorry. I'm usually loud enough that everybody could hear. Just ask Connie. I'm sorry about that. What I'm saying is I'll start with the list. Come up here, you'll have 3 minutes. Connie will time it, and if it runs over, please bear with us. There's a lot of people here. Everybody deserves a chance to speak. So that's why we're going to do that. I'll swing the mic towards you, address the board. If you agree with somebody, that's great. Keep it to yourself. Again, I want to reiterate, we want to get everything on the record. That's what you're here for. So with that being said, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, thank you. So Merrill Levy, number 1. I'm going to keep this mic right out here for you. Thank you. Just state your name.
Merrill Levy. My house is the second house across the street from the school.
Do you want to, is that good for you? Slide the table. There you go. Sorry, I think you're good. I really do.
My house is the second house across the street from the school. We bought for peace and tranquility. I open my own law practice and work out of my home. The construction will disturb my ability to work in my home and our peace. The construction will cause dangerous particulates to be released into the air from that which we know to be there. asbestos, black mold, and lead paint. Who is responsible for the oversight of the construction? We are an area with very few resources. What will be the days and hours of construction? The construction is forcing me to list my dream home in a bad market. Is there planning for the construction? What is the plan? Where are the dumpsters during and after construction and after they move in? We saw a bear go late at night from our development across Old Forge and into that property just the other week. How many animals will be attracted to the smells of the kitchen and the refuse? What does that do to us in terms of the animals? What is the plan for pickup and drop-off days? How does that affect us on buses, cars, taxis, and the narrow width of Old Forge Road? I will feel unsafe driving it with buses. Will there be police enforcement of traffic, construction, and other laws? Based upon the record before you, the information made available to you, and the assessment you have already made in Part 2 of the EAF, this board must either issue a positive declaration of significance and require a full EIS or deny the proposal. To do otherwise would be arbitrary and capricious, putting this board at risk of an Article 78 claim.
Thank you.
you.
Excuse me. That is just what I didn't want to happen because it screws with the minutes. If you want everybody's, what they say on record, please don't do that. That is what we're here for. That is what all you waited for to speak. So I can't stress it enough. We want to get everybody's word, last word on the minutes. Doing that does not work. Thank you. Mr. Howard. It's right there. How are you, sir?
Yeah, my name is Jeff Howard.
Address the board, Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
We're the ones that need to hear from the public, not out there.
My name is Jeff Howard, and I've lived in Warwick a long time, and one of the things that's clear to me is that Warwick has managed to develop and at the same time to retain its rural character and its special qualities that make Warwick, Warwick. And you all and your predecessors had a strong role in making that happen, so thank you. In 2011, the correctional facility closed. Big question of what would happen. It worked out very well. As I think everyone knows, Warwick Woodlands, recreation, beauty, jobs, and taxes. Kutzkamp closed several years ago. Another major change, another very positive outcome. Again, I assume you all had some role in that. Now the NYU Research Lab has changed, and there's another possibility, a major change being proposed of a 200 residential school plus faculty that will, as I say, produce major changes. You have done a good job of identifying that by classifying it as a type 1 and by identifying in your EAF Part 2 21 moderate to large impacts. So again, I think that's great. The question right now is what happens with a seeker review? And my firm request or my firm hope is that you will follow what you did with the type 1, follow what you did with the EAF Part 2, and request a seeker review of this entire process. It is a major change. It is in a state park, and there will be impacts. There'll be a lot of questions. You want the answers to those. We want the answers to those. And I think that's what seeker will do. So thank you.
Rebecca Quackenbush.
I have some goodies for you. Do you want to start here?
Yep. Thank you.
Tell me when to start.
You, right now.
Okay. Can you all hear me at the back? Okay. I'm here today to respectfully urge this board to issue a positive declaration.
Excuse
Rebecca
me?
Quackenbush. To issue a positive declaration under seeker for the proposed project that presents a moderate to large impact on the ecological integrity of Sterling Forest, particularly on its federally and state-listed sensitive species, of which you have noted here tonight. These are not fringe organisms. These are keystone indicators of a healthy, functioning ecosystem, and all three are known to inhabit or depend on habitats directly adjacent to and potentially within the project site. The northern long-eared bat is currently listed as endangered under the Federal Endangered Species Act due to white nose syndrome, and Sterling Forest is a known roosting and foraging habitat. This species is extraordinarily sensitive to forest fragmentation and human disturbance, exactly what this project entails, through site clearing, lighting, and noise. The eastern small-footed myotis, one of New York's rarest bats, requires rocky outcrops and forest edges for summer roosting, habitats that would be irreparably disturbed by construction and increased human activity. And let us not forget the Tinborough rattlesnake, a threatened species in New York, which depends on undisturbed forest corridors for denning and migration. Development along Iron Forge Road, a known corridor, would fragment this critical habitat and elevate risk of mortality from increased traffic and human contact. Notably, the applicant has pointed to the Threatened and Endangered Species Investigation by ERS Consultants, dated June 26, 2023, as evidence that there's no cause for concern. That report, submitted as Exhibit L, stated that none of the threatened or endangered species were found on site at the time of their visit. But let's be clear, the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, especially when even the report itself acknowledges that the site contains conducive habitat for these species. It is simply flawed logic and poor science to suggest that a species failure to appear on one particular day for one particular consultant means that they don't inhabit or traverse that area. The applicant also complains that a positive declaration and thus a full EIS is unnecessary. But that assertion is inconsistent with seeker regulations. According to the seeker Full Environmental Assessment Form Part 2, any project that may result in the reduction or degradation of habitat for listed species constitutes a moderate to large impact. That threshold has been met and exceeded in this case. To waive a full environmental impact statement here would be an error with lasting ecological consequences and a potential violation of seeker's intent. I urge the board to take the cautious, responsible route. Deny the application or issue a positive declaration, require a full EIS, and give these species and the public the thorough environmental review this region deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I don't know how many times I have to say it. We want to get it on the record. You fold your arms. If we don't get it on the record, it doesn't count. We want it on the record. That's what you're here for, correct? I said it 4 times. Please, respect everybody that's here. Roger Friedman.
Quiet, please.
Thank you.
My name is Roger Friedman, and I live in the town of Warwick, and I'll be referencing section 17 of the full EAF Part 2, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Sometimes people ask me where I live.
Listen to the mic.
Sometimes people ask me where I live, and after 30 years, I actually don't know what to tell them because I live in Warwick, but my mailing address is Tuxedo. I vote in Greenwood Lake, but my library is 7 miles in the other direction. I pay Tuxedo school taxes and Warwick property taxes. So where do I live? Well, the reality is that I live in Sterling Forest. There's a total of about 30 occupied residences around the southern shore of Sterling Lake. They form a distinct and integral settlement, and I estimate the total population of all these homes at about 45. The nearest inhabited buildings beyond are more than 3 miles away in any direction through dense forest. In fact, our settlement once had a name. It was called Lakeville. until about 1920 or something. And on MapQuest, it still says Lakeville, if you look it up. So the full EAF, Part 2, Section 17, Paragraph B, prepared by Nelson and Pope, Voorhees, asserts that the proposed action will not increase the population of any town or city by more than 5%. Now, this statement can only be accepted if the board ignores the real facts of the locality, Lakeville, Sterling Forest, and signs on to a technicality that the population of the town of Warwick will be largely unchanged. Sterling Forest is as a community of homes, is a real place, whether or not it's a separate political entity. The proposed action with this dormitory for 200 men will increase the population of the community of Sterling Forest by a lot more than 5%. Count all the residents in all of the homes around the southern shore, and the addition of 200 men will increase the population by more than 400%. Consider merely the 23 residences uphill of the Lautenberg Visitor Center, and that percentage nearly doubles. So I reject, as a cynical technicality, the no impact mark on EAF Part 2, Section 17, Paragraph B. Any reasonable person would recognize that the measure of a city or town does not apply to this locality. And that the entire town of Warwick, am I at 30 seconds? The entire town of Warwick is a poor criterion for measuring the population of our community against, and it is against the intent of SECRA. So these sorts of inconsistencies would be teased out in a full EIS, enacted through a positive declaration. Thank you.
John Gebmartin?
Honorable Chair and board members. My name is John Gebhards. I've been a resident of Orange County for some 43 years. And in late 1990s, I was hired by a consortium from the Nature Conservancy, Open Space Institute, and Scenic Hudson to be the executive director of Sterling Forest Resources, which became Sterling Forest Partnership. My charge was to develop a grassroots movement to foster the protection of the forested lands then known as Sterling Forest, owned by Sterling Forest LLC. The Sterling Forest Partnership was proud to be part of the purchase of 15,000 acres, which was the beginning of the Sterling Forest Park. One of the stated reasons for creating the Sterling Forest Park was, quote, to protect and conserve the various unique ecosystems that exist there, end of quote. Sterling Forest Partnership has strived to protect the environments of the park from intrusive development over the years, which include projects such as the casino, the dinosaur park, Sterling Forge, and cleanup of the mulch pile. My concern with the current proposed resident college is with the minimally defined response to its potential impact on the plant and animal life in this fragile ecosystem. That could happen if there's no environmental impact statement to identify and reduce this impact to a minimum. The current project proposal has failed to inventory the spring that emerges on the property that flows presumably into Sterling Lake, a drinking water supply. There is also a seasonal stream that runs through the property at the southeast corner. It is not represented on the maps, but it is clearly there in plain sight. That stream likely empties into Ringwood Creek, ultimately into New Jersey's Wanacue Reservoir, which is drinking water. For this reason, and for other inadequacies too numerous to list, I respect that the board issue a positive determination so that seeker, the procedure for a full EIS with public hearing, can proceed. Either that or the project should be denied on grounds of unresolved environmental concerns. Thank you for the opportunity. I have pictures of the spring and the creek that I referred to, and a copy of my, yes.
Thank you, sir. Heather Bullard. Heather?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am reading my name is Heather Bullard. I'm a resident of Sterling Lake, and I'm actually reading a letter from a neighbor who could not be here today because he had a chemo treatment. His name is Steve Ostrega, and he was the retired Deputy Commissioner of New York City Department of Environmental Protection and Executive Director of the New York City Water Board, and had this position for 35 years. Steve wrote to the Warwick Planning Board and copied elected representatives in New York and New Jersey who have a responsibility to safeguard the nearly 80 million federal New York and New Jersey investments made since 1998 to secure the 22,000 acres of land and establish the Sterling Forest State Park for the critical environment, purposes of watershed protection, protection of 27 rare and endangered wildlife species, and furthering secure the safety of a strategically located north-south migratory route for birds. The strategic objective of the rationale in establishing the park was and still needs to be to preserve the land in an open space in an undeveloped state, and that is what it's in, and today so remains, and thereby ensure that the many streams and headwaters from this watershed that serves more than 2 million New Jersey residents and tens of thousands of Orange and Rockland counties residents remains a reliable and sustainable, safe drinking water supply. In equal importance, that the park's environs an existing low-impact community, less than 40 single-family homes and cottages, the narrow park entrance roadway not be compromised, and create land and area use that would change the entire character of the park and existing community. The proposed development of a full-time residential campus at the site would have typically less than 30 staff, will increase the area's full-time and residence population by more than 400%, increase limited potable water demand by more than 60,000 gallons per day, and produce wastewater and considerable solid waste that will impact the flow into streams and feed into the Ramapo River water supply system. Further, emergency services, police and ambulance services already distant from this community within 45 minutes of good weather would be further taxed and endangered the health and the well-being of the existing community members. The entire college construction development project needs to be extremely careful and be critically reviewed. It is absolutely critical that the New York State SEQR process be followed and a full environmental impact review study be performed. $80 million of the taxpayer funds expended on achieving this beautiful park exists in reality, a safe land buffer zone achieving critical environmental protection and stabilization of the park's area. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I will open it up at the end.
Yeah. I also, sorry.
No, if you have something to submit, submit it.
I
Absolutely.
have something else submitted. It's a petition by all the residents on Sterling Lake
Thank
who
you.
are petitioning against
So
this.
this will all be in the record.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Our next speaker, Kiki Nelson.
Probably not. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to have to wing this because I actually forgot the item I wrote for so long. Okay. Yeah, okay, all right. So my name is Kiki Nelson. I live in Sterling Forest. I've lived there for 30 years, which is predates the formation of the park. During those 30 years, I spent 25 years commuting into New York City, where I was the director of, what's the terminology here? Director of Research Laboratory Operations for all the research labs of NYU Medical Center, including Sterling Forest. So I have a lot of firsthand knowledge about that place. I don't know where to begin, but I'm going to try to, in 3 minutes, try to tell you that the main type of research that they did there had to do with inhalation of contaminants. They are the gold standard for the information we have following the attacks on 9/11, and this information resonates down 25 years later to the first responders to today. In order to measure the effects of all these pollutants in the air, the lab itself has to use them so that they can see their effects on the animal models, also known as animals. And I can tell you just about everything they used is a known carcinogen. And then there are these kind of weird, they're looking at mercury as part of an air pollutant, all these heavy metals that are in the air, and they're looking at asbestos as a pollutant in the air. But these things have become part of the infrastructure of the building itself. So I guess, we all understand how asbestos works, and we know that the countertops in a lab, in these older labs, and they are older, are made of, okay. I'm not going to get to where I want to go in 30 seconds. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of pollutants, and I want to quote specifically, I want to get back to what Mr. Musso was saying about the monitoring. Can I do that later? Okay.
We'll discuss.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right, our next speaker, Susan Schleen. Susan? Sure, yep. Uh-oh, Susan, all right, take it easy, Susan.
There's a lot of Susans in this
That's
world.
all right.
I'm in one group where there are
You were
seven of us.
making it, trust me, you were gonna get there.
Right. So I'm having to switch all of a sudden because my part one is something I need to refine, and if I don't get to it, I want to do it at the end.
That's fine.
Because
That's fine.
I was given new information today. So, I'm Susan Scher, a 39-year resident of Tuxedo, 10 of which have been in northern Tuxedo, Sterling Forest. I moved to the area to be near nature. Its parks are important to me. Since 1987, I've been involved in the efforts to protect Sterling Forest lands. I was working before John came aboard. The sanctity of the parks are not a passing fancy for me. Okay, now I have to switch. My second concern relates to the board's unwillingness to look beyond the 7 acres of this project and look at the impact of an institution for 200 residents on Sterling Forest Park itself. 7 acres may be small, but that does not mean it can't have a large impact. The Jennings fire started with just a small spark. Why am I concerned about the impact of 200 late adolescent young men, college students on Sterling Forest State Park? I've been a college professor of undergraduates for more than 30 years, so I think I know a little bit about them. I want to take you all, everybody, back in time. I'm wondering, how many of you went to college and lived on campus? Okay. How many people were in your dorm room? The project has 50 dorm rooms at approximately 289 square feet for 4 students. This is a room, not a suite of 2 bedrooms for 4 people, as found in many colleges today. What did you do in the later afternoons and early evenings when you were finished with classes? Meals and studying. What did you do with your time? Where did you go to have time alone? Time informally to meet with friends, to get exercise or fresh air? Where did you wander? Where were the places to go on your campus outside of your dorm room? How large was your Okay, what? Okay, so let me just say, the end of this part is, tell me, what does a 20-year-old do with his time and energy, especially when his dorm room has 3 other people, when right around him is a park of open space, hiking trails, beautiful lakes across the street, a park with no staff at the lake or in the park after dark? No impact on the park? I think not. And I would like to go again, if I can.
Spiros? Come up.
Connie?
Sir?
My name is Spiros Kanitsiotis. I'm an officer on the board of the HOA.
Keep it closer.
Okay,
Thank you.
is this better?
Better?
Okay. In the document erroneously called Draft Expanded EAF, Part 3, responding to the project's notable inconsistency with the community character, the applicant piles up several pages of verbiage contesting the presence of Sterling Forest State Park in the Town of Warwick Community Preservation Plan. The park is absent, they say, from the plan's 7 target areas where preservation measures need to be enacted or improved. The applicant fails to mention that Sterling Forest State Park is named on the very first page of the Community Preservation Project Plan as the very model of successful preservation achieved, the goal to which the target areas are targeted. I quote from Part 1 of that document. Warwick's natural beauty extends beyond its farmland to mountains, streams, and lakes. The state of New York and the federal government have both recognized the rural and natural beauty of Warwick through acquisition of the lands known as Sterling Forest State Park and the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, respectively. Protection of Warwick's rural quality, agricultural character, and its natural environment clearly stand out as the major goals for the residents of the town. As many people here tonight have pointed out and will point out, the applicant's so-called draft, which pretends to mollify all the concerns notified by the Town of Warwick's Planning Department in the Part 2, is part of sleight of hand, excuses, and irrelevant information intended to obscure and confuse, not to enlighten, much less to show that concern has been addressed and resolved. It goes on. So I will.
You want to hand this to me? We'll take it for the record.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Lee Schultz?
Good. I have 2. Connie, I had sent you a note the other day saying I would be representing Edie in one, and then I'll be representing myself. Excuse me? Yeah, you got the email.
You're going to speak now.
So I get 2
No.
3-minute segments.
At the end. I want to give other people time. please.
I'm going to be Edie.
No, you're going to be you. State yours, and then I will get you back up for Edie. There's other people that signed after you. You didn't sign Edie, correct?
Well, I'm representing
I
2
understand-
people.
I understand that, but the person that signed behind you probably would like to speak. So I'll get you there. Trust me, I will get you there.
I crossed off the name behind me, which was my wife. Can she represent Edie?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lee Schultz, and I'm a resident of Warwick. I'm here tonight to urge the planning board to either deny the prospective project outright or at least issue a positive declaration based on the admissions made in EAF Part 2, Section 11, Impact on Open Space and Recreation. The EAF Part 2 was prepared by Nelson Page Voas, a town on behalf of the town, and I quote from Section 11, from Nelson under the heading of moderate to large impact. The project may diminish recreational resources in the adjacent state park. The answer in EFA Part 2 is not a hypothetical concern. It is a real, fundamental, formal admission. Open space and recreational access are not optional amenities. They are critical elements for the environment, social, and public health resources protected by state and local policies. Under SECRA's framework and decades of case law, the admission made in Section 11 requires the lead agency, you, to take a hard look. To take a hard look, that can only happen through a positive declaration and the preparation of a full EIS. To proceed with a negative declaration, despite the acknowledged potential of impact, would be arbitrary and capricious and would violate the spirit and the letter of SECRA. Recreational resources in Sterling Forest State Park are not trivial. They are not replaceable. They are part of New York's preserved natural heritage. They are recognized by conservation organizations and enjoyed by millions and enjoyed by thousands of people that visit the park over decades. In EAF Part 3, it is riddled with vague and self-serving statements. Statements like no direct disturbance to trails or recreation. Statements like these are intentionally misleading. SECRA does not require a bulldozer on a trail to trigger a positive declaration. It requires only the potential of a significant adverse impact. The Planning Board has acknowledged there is the potential for an environmental impact in EAF Part 2, Section 11. And guess who else agrees with you? We have written statements from the Palisades Interstate Park Commission, the Open Space Institute, and the New York, New Jersey Trail Conferences. These aren't casual comments. These are land and conservation experts.
Hang on one second. Mr. Hall, you're next. Do you wish, Lee, he's got it for another person, would you let him do that, or I'll have you up and then I'll call him back at the end?
Whatever suits you.
Lee, continue, you're here, we have you on the record.
Okay.
See that?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. He's a
Thank you,
good man.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you.
Okay. So these opinions are not casual opinions. They are from land managers and conservation experts. Moreover, the project will bring 400. Moreover, the project will bring over 400 increasing. Moreover, the project will increase the population of Sterling Forest by 400%. This increase is not a minor impact on the environmental. This increase is a transformational impact. To be blunt, the application's claim that this project doesn't encroach is legally insufficient, factually misleading, and environmentally irresponsible. In closing, there are acknowledged potential impacts to the state park. Multiple expert agencies have raised red flags. Hundreds of citizens have submitted letters to the planning board. A petition of over 1,400 names and growing across 3 states has been submitted to you. The public has spoken, the experts have spoken. Your own EAF acknowledges the environmental impact. Based on the records presented to you, the information available to you, your EAS assessment in Part 2, the board must either issue a positive declaration of significance and require a full EIS or deny the proposal. To do otherwise would be arbitrary and capricious and putting the board at risk of an Article 78 claim. Thank you.
Well, who is this for? I want to name on the record that you wish to come in for a person. Edie Greenstein. That was mine. I haven't done Edie's. You told me to do mine. All right, Mr. Hall's coming in.
I'll submit.
That's not what's going on here, I'm sorry. I asked Mr. Hall if he would give this time for Edie.
This is, I haven't done Edie's.
You're not gonna do it now. Mr. Hall, come on up. I gotta give you that, Lee, that was pretty good.
Well, you confused me. I didn't try to be good. I
give you that, that was,
Well said, well said.
yeah, Mr. Hall.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Richard Hull, and I served for about 2 decades as your municipal historian of the town of Warwick, which of course includes Sterling Forest. I was vice president of the Nature Conservancy in New York State for a number of years and served as a trustee, was a founding trustee of the Orange County Land Trust, was a professor at NYU, New York University. For 7 decades, I've traveled to Sterling Forest. I know it well. I've written about it, I researched it, and I've kind of grown up with Sterling Forest, even though we've had our farm over here in Warwick. But I should be speaking. Yeah, I'm sorry. Seriously, this is the professor in me. I often speak in that direction. Anyway,
I'm sure they'd like to hear you, Mr. We need to hear you.
yeah, right. Okay, exactly. So I have looked at Sterling Forest and thought a lot about it. Sterling Forest, 140 years ago, was a wasteland. It was heavily mined since before the American Revolution, played a very important role in providing critical minerals for us to fight for our independence. But the trees were all taken down to fire the furnaces of Sterling Forest. And if you walked across the land that we're talking about today, you would see a wasteland. You wouldn't hear birds. You wouldn't see species of trees, very many certainly. You'd see a ground with very thin soil and so forth. And I passed through it many, many times. I was a kid growing up, and I'm going to be 85 this year. But you look at it today, and it's priceless. It has, we've already learned tonight, how many species of birds, of reptiles, of just of land, of soils, and it's a precious thing that we have. And it's the process of a lot of people, a lot of citizens working together to make sure that that land will remain pristine, will remain our lungs from all the oxygen that the millions of trees in Sterling Forest give out. And it's the people who work to put that together, institutions, individuals, foundations, the state of New Jersey, the state of New York, the federal government. There are so many entities responsible for the saving of Sterling Forest. Many of them have passed away now. In fact, the majority of the key people. But we have a responsibility. That is a legacy. And I can tell you right now, as a historian of Warwick, that this is a very important event that's occurring tonight. And we have to make sure that we save Sterling Forest. Okay.
Mariano, please.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Yeah.
Mariano?
Yeah. Honorable Mr. Chairman and board members, my name is Mariano Klingeloy. I live in the town of Warwick, specifically in Sterling Forest. I respectfully come before you because I'm deeply troubled by the impact of the proposed residential college will have not only on the forest, but also on Sterling Lake itself. I will not repeat all the concerns previously raised before this board. However, I would like to go on record indicating that I fully agree with them. In addition, I'd like to mention that I had the privilege to work with Suez and later Viola teams responsible for the replacement of the water tank located across Old Forge Road from the old NYU site, while serving as president of our Homeowners Association for Sterling Lakes in years 2021, 22, and 23. It is important to note that said project, the water tank, did not require a full environmental study because it was an in-kind replacement of an existing structure. Still, Suez and later Veolia went out of their way to ensure the potential impacts to the environment, including the cutting of some trees needed to replace the old water main, were kept to a minimum and resulted in no community opposition to the project. However, the matter at hand, the development of the proposed residential college, is far from being an in-kind use of the former NYU educational and research facility. It would be disingenuous to the extreme to argue that this development will not alter and disturb, if not pollute and spoil, the delicate environment of Sterling Forest and Sterling Lake. The sewer upgrades, the water upgrades needed for this project will require land disturbances that were already discussed, and these impacts should not be have not been addressed should not be ignored and should not be assumed to be de minimis. As good neighbors, we would expect the college and the developer to do nothing but to voluntarily submit to a full environmental review of their proposed plans, which they have not done so far. So therefore, the planning board should allow this project to proceed in the heart of a priceless economic asset. It would be doing our community, our region, and our state a huge disservice. Such development will clearly degrade an invaluable resource for generations to come. Accordingly, this board should request that a hard look at the overall environmental impact of this project be taken by an outside hydrologist, as would be required in a positive declaration. Therefore, and to conclude, this board must either issue a positive declaration of significance or require a full ISS to deny the proposal. Otherwise, you'll be putting yourself at risk an Article 78 claim. Thank you for your consideration, and here's my statement.
Susan?
My name is Susan Klingeloy, and I also live in the town of Warwick in Sterling Forest. While I am, for the sake of clarity and time, I'm reading my statement, I can assure you that I really speak from the heart when I tell you that I am deeply troubled by the impact of this proposed residential college in Sterling Forest. I again will not repeat all the concerns that have been raised, but I really would like to go on record that I am also agree with all these concerns. I would like to bring up the State Environmental Quality Review Act, Section 617.7, subsection C, item 4, which cites as grounds for a positive declaration of significance material conflict with the community's current plans or goals as officially approved or adopted. Sterling Forest State Park indeed has a master plan approved and adopted in 2001 that neither the planner or applicant seems to have looked at. It states that the primary vision for the park is to maintain the quality of the strategically located watershed resources, scenic open spaces, and natural habitats, and provide recreational opportunities for the public. However, the applicant failed to consider the master plan of Sterling Forest State Park, being satisfied not to look beyond Warwick's community preservation plan, and it gave a deeply flawed reading of that document. The proposed action, the establishment of this 200-man resident facility in this locality, is inconsistent with the master plan of Sterling Forest State Park. In fact, I believe it would be doing our community, our region, and our whole state a huge disservice. Such a development would clearly degrade an invaluable resource for generations to come. That's why I respectfully request the board must either issue a positive declaration of significance and require a full EIS or otherwise denies the proposal. Thank you very much, and would you take my statement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Beverly Simon?
Sitting that way too long.
Yeah. Did you get a cushion?
I got too much cushion. Good evening, all. Dear respected servants of our community and fellow members of Warwick. Mine's on my phone because I did it in a draft. I too have written a letter, as you're well aware. I've been a resident of the town of Warwick in over 37 years. Just ask the ex-husband, who I managed to get the. I live in the park too because I got the cottage when we got divorced. I know it's useless information you needed to know.
Maybe he'll verify it later.
I just asked him.
That's funny.
This is the largest piece of protected land within 41.2 miles of New York City. Yes, I commuted there 2 weeks ago for work, so I know. What this worries me about is this would compromise the environment collectively of Warwick and the state, as well as parts of New Jersey, since we border it. Not just for the immediate future, but as Dr. Hall pointed out, for 100 years to come. There is a need for only one potential adverse impact to the community with that increased population. that would put an issue of concern and safety for all residents in that hamlet. Case in point, we had a tornado microburst touch down in May. I was without power for 5 days. It was fixed quickly, thank you, to the local servants. When my father was still alive, he fell, and it took 2 hours for a police officer to come to my aid, but I got a neighbor. These are 2 examples. And then just to touch on the endangered species. 2.5 years ago, there was a rattlesnake on my step. I've been there for 14 years. That's the only time I saw a rattlesnake there, but it's an endangered species. Yes, I broke my ankle. Yes, I wanted to kill it. Yes, I was told I can't. Thank you, sir. And as everyone has said before, based on this record of everything that's presented to the board and the community at large, and the information available, I respectfully request you take a very deep look and request a full and complete EIS or deny the proposal. And of course, violation would be Article 78. Thank you. Yeah, oh, it's adorable.
Rose Gotti? Rose? Steve Gotti? Kerry Coyne? Harry?
Good evening. My name is Kerry Coyne. I'm a homeowner in the town of Warwick. Throughout my life, my interactions with the applicant community have been very unsavory. My parents' first home was in the town of South Blooming Grove. Once a great place for people to buy a first home, now completely unrecognizable, with unkempt houses, lawns, and litter strewn everywhere. We then moved to Cornwall, where I was raised. In 2003, some wells came up for sale, and the town couldn't scrounge together the $13,000 that was needed to purchase them. A straw buyer did. They were then given to the United Talmudic Academy of Curious Joel. Lots of drama ensued with lawsuits over illegal pipelines being built, water rights, but the fact of the matter is that the town's water stability was permanently impacted. Many have heard about the horror stories from boards not so dissimilar from yours in towns like Ramapo, which in 2009 faced a hostile takeover. The newly formed school board proceeded to completely gut the public schools' budgets year after year, fired hundreds of staff, ending school sports, after-school clubs, AP courses, and pretty much everything else that you needed to have a functioning public school. They reauthorized taxpayer funds towards the private yeshivas, and very notably to our topic, exploited a New York state law forcing public tax dollars to transport yeshiva students for free. There isn't much information about the proposed school, but niche.com, a website that shares information about colleges, states that it's based out of Muncie and has a 4% graduation rate. If the school is not in the business of producing graduates to go on and be some productive members of society, I wonder what they are in the business of. They teach only one major, Talmudic and Rabbinical Studies. A quote from these texts: "If a Jew be called upon to explain any part of the rabbinic books, he ought to only give a false explanation. Whoever violate this order shall be put to death." There are many more lines which are entirely unsuitable for quoting here from these books, and I encourage everyone to do a little research themselves on these texts that the school will be teaching. These statements are not meant to come off as anti-Semitism, but rather reflect my personal dealings with very specific communities. We, as residents, owe each other to look out for one another. You, as the board, fall into that same group. I want what's best for my family, neighbors, and town at large, and you have a duty as the planning board to do the same. Many once lovely communities have been destroyed by people pretending to be good neighbors. Don't let your cohort be the ones that put the town of Warwick on a similar path. Thank you.
Doc Bear? They are? Doc? Doc Bain? Doc Bain, well, you saw the writing here.
Hi, I'm Doc Bain. I'm the founder of the Friends of Sterling Forest and was the president. And I've been researching Sterling Forest for 26 years. I found the forge that made the West Point chain, which stopped the Revolutionary War. We did an archaeological dig there, and we have now had the archaeological company that came to the site is submitting it to become a National Historic Site. If that happens, we have a trail that is there. That trail was basically there when they were making the Great Chain. By hiking it now, it will not hurt the forest, it will not hurt the animals, because Sterling Forest has always been a place for people to go hiking and enjoying the forest. So I just want to make it clear that the historic site will become a National Historic Site. And I fear the fact that if a place is built and let people there all over the place just walking, what the site may do is go through some terrible, terrible sites. There will be no parking lot added. There will be no buildings needed and very little environmental impact. It will just be the existing trail for people to come to the park and walk through it. And I don't know what would happen if we had so many people there going through the site and doing actual more digs and scrapping through the archaeological sites. There were 17 forge sites. I found 15 of them. We hired Strata Archaeological Company to come and do an archaeological dig on each of the sites. All of the artifacts found are now at Sterling Forest and will be soon displayed to the public. And if somebody wants to see the site, you just go walk the trail and there'll be no destruction. Thank you.
Jeffrey Martin? Jeffrey?
Just so you know, this is the archaeological report.
Hold on 1 second, sir. Jeffrey?
This is the archaeological report done by Strata Archaeological, which is being submitted to the park and also to make it a National Historic Site.
Dolores Martin? Thank you. Diana Larson? Cindy and Dennis Simon? Cindy? Dennis? No? Laura Georgeston? Rich McKenna? Rich?
How you doing, folks? My name is Rich McKenna. I live on Petaluma Road. I've been up here just about 30 years now. There's two questions I got to ask. How is this a school of higher learning? You're rotating kids in, 200 students every month, and rotating them back out again. Yeah, they keep on coming back. So to me, this is like, what this basically is a religious training facility. Yeah. Yeah, you still, if you're a man and you can say you're a woman, you're still a man. All right, come on. It's not higher education. But I'm also looking at, I know that road very well. I have friends on it. I'm retired from the New York City Police Department. I did traffic, I did truck and bus enforcement, and I did accident investigations. You're going to bring 4 60 passengers buses up there. You're going to turn it into a one-way street every time you do it. There's going to have to be cops there, and that costs the town money. There's going to be a lot of traffic there, and a lot more traffic than they're willing to admit to. And it always happens that way. With that, I'm done. You don't have to give me a warning.
John Benya? John?
Chairman, with your agreement, I'd like our supervisor to go first, and I would like to follow him.
He's right after you here,
Yes.
Mr. Supervisor. So you're David McMillan?
I am, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Planning Board members. I'm just going to bring a couple of things technical to you in regards to the EAF, which would be the Part 1 EAF on page 5. I believe I sent you guys an extensive letter you guys got back in March 14th. I think I was on the phone with Mr. McConnell for quite some time on that one. One of your members called me. We spoke for like an hour on the phone. We'll talk about that later. You know, well, maybe it wasn't you. Maybe I have. I just have to say I wrote. That was. Okay, that was you. Okay, Showalter. As the tuxedo supervisor, obviously I have to protect my citizens from impact. In the particular section of the EAF, it notes that the sewer system will have limited impact, and it says there is no impact to the project, and it's noted as saying that is so. However, in a response from Veolia, they're claiming that's a $4.3 million upgrade to that sewer system. Now, how does that impact my residents? If it's not a privatized connection, that $4.3 million will come back against their sewer bills. It will not. Okay. Just bringing it up, okay, because that's how it works in our sewer district. Just bringing it to your attention. Number 2, there is no current mutual aid agreement between Tuxedo and Warwick, and I just found out from the fire department, so we need to re-engage to get that done, okay? Yeah, well, I'm saying to you that this morning when I spoke to Company 1 president, he wasn't aware of one. If you have documents to prove otherwise, then certainly I'll take them into consideration. And lastly, as a citizen, there's been some pretty good arguments here today. I've been a member of the planning board for many, many years in Tuxedo, and it's adding up as a positive declaration, in my opinion. So thank you, everyone here, and have a good night.
You, sir.
I'm John Bagno. I'm the chairman of the Town of Tuxedo Planning Board. I'd like to point out one item on the full EIF Part 2, Question 3, impact on surface water, and the answer was no. We would like you to take another look at that, since Sterling Lake is very close to this site. You can almost see it, I think, this time of the year with the leaves off the trees. So that was one thing that I wanted to bring up. And also on the Part 2, there were 22 items indicated as large or moderate impacts. I just want to get that on the record. There's a state agency called the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, DASNY. And you did not refer this project to that authority of the state. And I think they might want to be informed of this project, because I'm by no means an expert on that authority. But looking on their website, they do have guidelines for fire safety, the number of students per room, and so on. So that's
That's why we have our professionals to do that due diligence also, as well as you do.
okay. Thank you on that one. And then finally, I want to present this to our full planning board at our May meeting. And I don't think I need a referral from your board to do that, do I?
For what?
Just so they know all the recent submissions to this board, so that they might have other concerns that we would certainly bring to your attention at your next meeting.
Talk to your legal, I mean, we're the lead agency on this project.
No, we understand that. We understand that.
And didn't we
You sent all your information to the planning
so
board.
you have that?
We do.
So did
But
the
we
planning
haven't,
board review it?
Not as a full board,
That's
no.
on you.
So we,
I would say to take it, if you want to bring that to your.
we
board,
can do that.
Absolutely, why don't you?
Okay, okay. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be doing
No,
that.
I thought you would,
Okay,
absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Dave McMillan? Oh, I'm sorry, you were on it twice, wow, you were good. You were as good as Lee. Manny J. Rebello? Manny? No? Ross Winger? Ross? No? Kenneth English?
Good evening. My name is Kenneth English, 42 Cross Ridge Road, Tuxedo, New York, which is just up Long Meadow Road from the site in question. Chairman Astorino, board members Kennedy, Showalter, McConnell, Garby, and Purcell. You still with us? God bless you all. I'm here tonight to advocate for a deeper dive into the analysis of this development plan that would be triggered by a positive declaration. So much of what I wanted to say has been said, so I'll try not to repeat. But I heard tonight about traffic, transportation expectations, and what's anticipated. I heard school buses only. 4 school buses, I think I heard, 50 passenger school buses. I'm not expecting an answer to these questions, but how would that be monitored? And what are the consequences if a violation is observed? Are the transportation expectation conditions embedded in the town code as part of the special permit? Would these expectations be a condition that must be adhered to in perpetuity? The inclusion of these requirements seems very prudent. The mechanism for enforcement seems challenging at best. Code without enforcement is a toothless tiger. These roads are also used by pedestrians and are partially marked as trails. So school buses going down there, big concern. Also, stating that there'll be no children on the site, again, kind of difficult to enforce. Trying not to repeat here. So the potential impact of a residential college in the middle of this oasis requires a positive declaration under seeker. And obviously you guys have done a lot of work on this and very much appreciated. I think though getting it right requires a really deeper dive that would come from a positive declaration. So thank you very much for your hard work on this.
Marty and Karen Pfeiffer?
Good evening. My name is Martin Pfeiffer. I'm a resident of Sterling Forest in Warwick. I've lived here for 28 years with my wife, Karen. On a personal note, I listen to the response of police and firefighters. As a former police, I have an idea a little about that. The closest police agency is 16 miles away from this location. This is from a higher institute of learning, a school, which is a threat. On a firefighter note, it's a fully volunteer agency. Sterling Forest, the first firefighter, Karen, where are you? Is my wife. My wife will be the first one through that door because she lives 300 feet from that facility. So be it known. On a larger scale, tonight I'm representing the board, presenting to the board documents that reflect the will of the individuals in Sterling Forest State Park from far and wide, who signed the names to statement that urged the Warwick Planning Board to deny the proposal to issue a positive declaration requiring a full environmental impact with public scoping. As a person who visits and values Sterling Forest State Park, I'm deeply disturbed by the proposal to construct a residential complex for 200+ students on a privately owned land situated within this tranquil park. It is important to protect the ecological integrity of Sterling Forest. We believe that a residential college does not belong in the middle of State Park. In the past few years, the park has already experienced a number of threats a microburst causing major damage to the trails, and the Jennings Creek fire, which has significantly impacted human life, flora, and fauna. In the past, the property under the NYU was used only as a research laboratory with 25 to 50 people, graduate students working there. It did not house students and residents. Therefore, creating this college of 200+ students will be a huge increase in population, a change to use. The Warwick Planning Board must hold the proposed residential college to the most rigorous possible standards of environmental review in New York, demanding a thorough draft environmental impact statement and admitting public input. Herewith, I have over 2,000 signatures. Let me remind you that as a committee under the umbrella of the town of Warwick, you are here to represent us, these people, and to protect our interest, not the interest of this applicant. By these 2,000 people have expressed concern about this project in one way or another. The planning board is in a fine position tonight to issue a positive declaration and to satisfy the public's clearly argued and expressed appeal to save Sterling SARS. Not to do so would be arbitrary and capricious on the part of the planning board. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. I want to get on the record. Thank you. Laura Raynoff?
Hello, my name is Laura Raynoff. I have for 27 years lived in the town, in the neighborhood of Laurel Ridge, literally on the border of Sterling Forest State Park in the town of Tuxedo. I want to address specifically the Environmental Assessment Form Part 2 prepared by consultants for you and the very first section, Impact on Land. That Part 2 marks no less than 4 categories as capable of producing a moderate to large impact on land. A positive declaration of significance under seeker is advised if only a single incidence in the EAF Part 2. The board indicated 4 such impacts on the land alone. The response that the board permitted from the applicant, the so-called draft expanded EAF Part 3, says little more than, "We'll be careful." It uses a lot of words to say that and provides no real guarantees of care. Based on the information made available to you and the assessment you made last November in Part 2 of the EAF, this board must either issue a positive declaration of significance and require a full EIS or deny the proposal. Thank you for your time. That's my statement.
Yeah, I'm going to take a pass on this. Thank you. Donna Douglas. Donna?
Hi, Donna Douglas. First, I'd like to state I, too, am a transfer from South Blooming Grove. So my concern is the impact on the environment, the endangered species, but also the traffic impact. I lived through an experience in Blooming Grove, and I would not want to see that happen here. Even though they say it's going to be a school for 200 students, I don't know that it's going to be that.
Well, I will say this, and I haven't commented much on the comments. We will not act on hypotheticals. We cannot. The one gentleman that was just here about the safeguards, that's what we're here for. We follow the code.
Yeah.
There's a code that is in place for the town of Warwick that every resident was involved in or should have been involved in. And we follow that. That's where we have our professionals. But to say hypotheticals, you could do that on a 40-lot subdivision that comes by this board. And if they don't do this, it's a site plan.
Right.
And they have to adhere to the site plan, period. That's why we have safeguards in our community.
I get it.
That's for everyone.
Okay.
That's
But
not just this application. It's
yeah.
every application.
But that's my concern. So I just don't want to change the quality of life in Warwick.
Jason Sadowski. Jason?
Good evening, Board. My name is Jason Sadowski. For 17 years, I'm going to get a little emotional. For 17 years, I was a volunteer fireman in Rockland County, in South Spring Valley, neighboring Spring Valley. Many of you might be familiar, 5 years ago, there was a fire that took the life of Jared Lloyd in a 200-person facility in Spring Valley that was poorly maintained, that was undergoing religious practices in their kitchen. That kitchen fire took a life that's never been repaid. What stops this facility from having a kitchen fire of the same cause? What stops this facility from being the next victim to a Greenwood Lake fireman, Tuxedo fireman, or the required mutual aid departments that would have to come in to field this type of fire should it catch? There is no answer to that. That's why it shouldn't exist.
August? August?
August Malillo, Homestead Village. Kind of unprepared, but there's a lot said here. One of the things was the gentleman from HER, I'm not sure what that acronym stands for, he spoke a lot about what NYU did, which he didn't speak anything about going forward with this project. I'm afraid of people that constantly misrepresent themselves. No, not him. I'm talking about going forward. No, NYU is a very reputable organization.
That's what we're talking about.
They were like good. They were good
they
neighbors.
did what they had to do.
I'm afraid of the future. South Blooming Grove, Ramapo. It's very frustrating. This is very frustrating. I just want to. This is from the Chattel something Free Press. Rabbi Aaron Teitelbaum gives Jewish names to neighborhoods surrounding Kiryas Joel. This is a quote from that same article. We live in exile in America, in a decadent land, and we need to be sealed away from our surroundings so as to remember that we do not reside in America. That's about all I got to say.
Amy Sheridan?
I give my time to Danielle.
Can you spell your name?
DANIELLESINISI. So I'm a Warwick resident, I'm a substitute teacher, and a former school bus driver for the district. So what I wanted to say was we have school buses that have driven on these roads for many years, and I know how tight some of these roads can be, just making it through. The idea of pedestrians on trails, on roads, is more concerning to me than the studies you've talked about. I do not see that working out well. And I also am concerned with the environmental impact. But my experience with the drivers, unfortunately from Kiryas Joel, have been overcrowded buses and illegal practices, speeding on highways, and I've had to report them multiple times as they passed me, driving a school bus in dangerous ways. I would like to know, how do we ensure the safety of the people in that community, the drivers on that tight road, and the people who are pedestrians? Also, I would like to state that I did not know about this hearing much ahead of time. I would have signed up myself. I appreciate the yield. But we need our community to be heard. We need to make sure that when there's important issues like this, that every member of our community knows about it and that they have the chance to speak on it and study it ahead of time. And I feel a lot of people felt like they didn't know about it, and I don't know why, but I think that that's something that we need to make sure that we hear them now. And if they are, and I realize you guys are trying, I do. But if they are signing petitions and they are studying and they are trying to get their voices heard, I just want to make sure that everybody has that voice. Thank you, guys.
Brenda Wiley.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brenda Wiley. I am a resident of the village of Greenwood Lake. I'm going to read this because I kept editing it. Having grown up in Rockland County, Sterling Forest has been a wonderful and preserved mecca for me and my family for decades. It is where I learned to ski, hike, and experience the outdoor beauty, and it's where I rescued my first little critter. I am here this evening as I have grave concerns, which I will reiterate, should this project be approved, how it could potentially impact the following: the environment, the ecological system of protected habitats, pollution, the potential need for increased emergency services and agency support in the event of a natural disaster, invasive species, which can fuel in the event of a fire, increased resources such as state park staff, off-site improvements, including fire hydrants, additional sewers, traffic lights, roadway repairs, additional funding and plans to control traffic flow, and parking lot shortages at the nearby visitor center. Further, I strongly feel that while the need for higher education is important, this project should not be in the center of a protected state park, nor at the expense of taxpayers footing the bill, especially if an entity plans to possibly classify as a nonprofit. Hold on. Okay. This could be detrimental to nearby communities for many of the reasons I've mentioned. My questions are, what standards and reasonable conditions for the college that they will have to comply with? Will there be a timeline or schedule for inspections to ensure that all is safe with zoned capacity of the buildings and fire safety, water pollution, etc.? And lastly, who will be responsible for monitoring and enforcing the anticipated 200 campus residents? Let's not reverse what took over a decade to put in place to protect this state park. It is imperative that a full environmental impact study happens. Thank you.
Hi, I don't think I'm going to need 3 minutes. So I came with the intent to just listen. I don't need another cause. I'm not always received very well. I'm very direct and to the point. I was lucky to get a seat right in front next to the representatives for this project, who have sat here this whole time scoffing, laughing with each other, making comments, and now they're just jotting down things to make it look like everyone who has an opinion or an objection is anti-Semitic, squaring it out in dark letters. And I hear everyone mentioning an Article 78. I have no idea what that is, but it really sounds like people have been speaking to attorneys and representation on both sides. There's a lawsuit coming from one side or the other, and I just hope the town is really doing their part to prevent that and our taxpayer dollars from paying for that litigation. But also, I'm just concerned with the word student, adult male, like, are these students? Are they age 17 to 21? Are they older? Like, what kind of school is this? And if they are older, another project going on in Florida, everybody was asking that background checks were done for residents there. If these are grown men and you're bringing in 200 strange grown men to this area, will there be background checks on them to be in this school? And then I heard about the 172 or 75 cars a day from the traffic study that was done, and then we're saying that it's not really going to increase because it's going to be 4 buses. What about all the professors and visitors? How does that affect traffic? And we see in other areas like Muncie, KJ, Palm Tree, the bus drivers get into accidents pretty frequently. That's not anything having to do with their race. I'm just more concerned with qualifications. Are these bus drivers going to be CDL? Are they just going to be members of the college that the college hired? Who's going to oversee that? Then you have, it's naive to assume that 200 men are going to stay in these tiny rooms that sound like a prison cell, 3 of them to a room, and not walk around the community or through the forest or across the street in people's backyards. And then you have the buses coming in and the extra traffic. What if the pedestrian gets ran over? What if it's a student? So now who's that lawsuit go to? Does it go to the school? Does it go to Tuxedo? Does it come to Warwick? Because nobody's just going to get ran over by a car and not sued. That's not the climate we live in. So I'm just concerned about a lot of things, and I don't think they're really being addressed. We're mainly just addressing environmental, but if this project goes through and they do everything up to code, there's a lot of other issues that really need to be looked in, because it's easier to stop something than it is to go back once you have it in place, because who's going to enforce just 200 students and 20 to 50 educators and visitors? Who's to say it won't be 150? And the occupancy says 200. Does that 200 include the professionals working there and visitors, or is it students plus? Like, what's the actual occupancy? Yeah.
Thank you. Ann Lewinsky? Ann?
Good evening. I come before you respectfully. I'm Ann Wiborowski. I'm born and raised in Monroe. I grew up in my family home just a few miles from the north end of Sterling Forest. I attended the very first meetings in the mid-'80s when Sterling Forest Corporation was being when the forest protection efforts were first being put in place. And there's been a tremendous effort at both from the federal to state, regional, and very local efforts to support the forest lands. I stand before you today in part just to underscore what you've been hearing. I don't need to repeat all the arguments that have been made around water quality, water quantity, biodiversity, rare and endangered species, unique and fragile habitats, and the issues around transportation and a higher density residential setting. I'd just like to let you just again underscore that there has been very important issues raised, and I believe that those issues being raised put forth a strong argument for a positive declaration for a full environmental impact statement. And I encourage you to take to heart and carefully look at what's been said. And thank you.
That is the end of the list. Lee, look at you.
I'm going to take Lee's place.
You're not going to like that.
Yeah, well, I know.
Really after
It's okay, we're friends. I just want to say, as co-chairman of the Sterling Forest Partnership, that the Sterling Forest Partnership rejects any idea of the nature of the population that's going to be in this school. Our sole concern is environmental, and we reject any discussion of the who will.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Because discrimination does not come into any one of these professionals or board members.
I hope not. I told my people.
Quite frankly, it's disgusting, and I appreciate you saying that.
I told my people in our very first meeting, if you don't feel exactly the same way, if this were a prep school for boys in blue blazers and neckties, go away. I don't want you here.
Thank you. Lee.
My name is Lee Schultz, and I'm talking on behalf of Edie Greenstein from 3 Oregon Court, Tuxedo Park. Edie says, I would not send my child to this proposed school in the heart of Sterling Forest State Park. As a responsible parent, I would never risk the safety of my child. The site of the proposed college was once laboratories conducting experiments on animals, including apes. The laboratories are still riddled with asbestos, according to the employees that I've spoken to. Just as a footnote to one of Mike's comments, right before the sale, I was trying to broker a deal between NYU and Palisades Interstate Park. I was dealing with the VP of real estate at NYU. She told me in full disclosure that the building was riddled with asbestos and required to be demolished. So, Mike, I think you have to look at your study again and see that that it's really pervasive throughout the building. Edie continues. This also applies to mold, chemical, and lead contamination that the environment experts have reported are widespread throughout the building. Jeopardizing the health of any student is terrifying. Sterling Forest State Park closes at dusk. There will be no park personnel to warn the 200 lives housed in isolation of any potential dangers such as tornado or fire, both of which we've experienced in the park last fall. Adults can escape the area by car. 200 students will be trapped By the time enough buses come to evacuate the large population in the school, many lives could be lost. Outdoor activities are fraught with danger. Exposure to ticks in the forest environment is a huge concern. There are many tick diseases, Lyme being the most familiar among us. Lyme disease can result in lifelong health effects, including headaches, fatigue, and joint pain. As well as there are many animals that are home to Sterling Forest, including raccoons, bears, and coyotes, just hungry for the snack of a college resident that may be carrying a package. The thought of a wild animal attacking anyone cringes me with fear. The alternative of imprisoning 200 young adults indoors is cruel. There are no sidewalks on Old Forge Road, a very hilly and narrow street. A college student out to enjoy our spectacular park will likely be out of sight of any incoming vehicles. The danger would be exasperated at night when darkness would obscure anyone on the roadway. This is obviously a disaster waiting to happen. In addition, the steep drop-offs in the back of the property are a concern. Engineers hired by the college have reported that there is a ridge north of Old Forge Road towards the southern portion of the site with an elevation difference of 58 feet across the site. This is not a safe location for 200 college residents. The 200 students, a minimum of 400% increase in the park would put a strain on police, fire, and ambulance. Okay.
Anyone else would like, 1 second. Anyone
you
else
have
that has
meetings.
not spoken? Not yet. I got the guy in the back. He coughed you first, I'll get you. Thank you. I'll get him next. Thank you.
Evening.
Evening, how are you?
Cheese and crackers. It's been a hell of a night.
Can you, state your name for the record, sir?
Sure. Jim Mailing, M-E-H-L-I-N-G, Cascade Road, Warwick. Born in Tuxedo Hospital, 1963. I grew up in Laurel Ridge. Lived there for 16 years. Lived in Orange County my whole life. Sat on the other side. Don't envy you right now. Don't envy you. This has been one of the best turnouts I can recall ever seeing at a board meeting anywhere. A lot of people here tonight supporting you on doing your due diligence to protect them and what we have out there in this world. This isn't about who, and I'm tired of the talk about the who. I've lived in this area my whole life. I could rail on and on, it's not relevant. This is about the what, and the what is been well allocated by these folks here tonight as to the impact it has on the area, our town. I'm all for improvement, I'm all for shit. This whole area was rural my whole life. Now it's suburban. You know, you're a farmer. It's changed. Progress comes. A lot of people don't like it. I'm not a big fan myself, but at the same time, I'm here, so who am I to say someone else can't come in? But they gotta be good neighbors. They have to be good neighbors. We all have to be good neighbors. You have a responsibility. You don't leave garbage and crap out in your yard. You don't leave stuff laying out in the road for other people to have to drive by and go, when's he gonna pick up his garbage? How come it says construction and demolition debris laying out in the road? Some people do that. We have a responsibility to maintain the integrity of this town for all of us, not just us, for our kids. I grew up down there. My dad was a founding member of the Sterling Forest Volunteer Fire Company and its first president. I was a junior member. I've ridden Warwick EMS for 18 years as an EMT. Trust me, I know first responders and emergency services inside and out. That being said, yeah, it is a big deal down there. It's remote and isolated as hell. We used to camp, fish, hike, swim in Sterling Lake when I was a kid. Amazing area. The historical significance cannot be understated, as Dr. Hull stated. If it wasn't for that area, we wouldn't have put the chain across the Hudson and kept the British from going down to New York and splitting the colonies in half. It's more than just a school. This is about our town. This is about the future of this town and all of the people that live here. I don't envy you in what you do, but I do ask you and charge you with, do your due diligence, please. These people will back you to the hill. We will fill this hall and fill the parking lot to support you in doing your job. Do it.
Jim, I will say this, as you well know.
Yep.
This board always.
I know.
Always. I want to state that one more time. Always does their due diligence.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Thank you.
That's why I want to implore you to continue doing
sir.
that. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Chris Keelty. I live here in Warwick. I wanted to thank.
Can you spell your name?
Oh, yeah, you're not going to guess. Last name's Keelty. I wanted to thank my neighbor here for saying what needed to be said. This is not about who these people are. This is still the United States. We still have religious freedom. We did when I walked in here. I haven't checked the headlines. We'll see when I leave. But, you know, this is not about who people are. It's not about Ramapo. It's not about other communities. This is about this piece of property and how this is going to be used. I will say personally that I think the direction that this property, that the park in general has been moving has been very positive. I think that this seems like a step in the wrong direction to take to establish a residential property. Mr. Krahulik said earlier that this property is not part of the bird conservation area. That is true, but it's sort of true the way the Vatican's not part of Rome. It's no, you're and legally. Legally, I know that makes a difference, and your attorney's absolutely right to cite it. It doesn't make a difference to migratory birds. They don't understand that little carve-out. So what I would suggest and what I would appreciate is just, given the location, given that this is in a piece of preserved land that has been moving in this direction, for this board to err on the side of looking as close and scrutinizing the environmental impact as closely as possible so that we can really be clear about what that impact might be. And that's it.
Anyone else? With that, you, sir.
The last couple of folks, hi, my name is Don Kilcoyne. Hi, we've met. How are you? Good to see you. A lot of folks came up and were there you go. A lot of folks were talking about the last couple of folks talk about separating the process from the people that we're talking about. I walked in tonight and I was so impressed with the due diligence that you guys have applied to this project. Phenomenal amount of data. You listened carefully to what everybody had to say. What I think we're simply asking for is take that next step. Make sure everybody knows that they've been heard, and you want to just take that next research step. The problem is that hearing what you've already done due diligence-wise, I think you're going to come out with the same response, and I mean that in a positive way. You're going to have the same result, but the public would like you to crack it open again, take another look. Yes, please.
To crack it open, we never closed it.
Okay.
So to say something's final, that's not the case. It's always a process. The process is we're still doing our due diligence. As I said 3 hours ago now, maybe a little better. No action is going to be taken tonight. No vote will be taken.
Gotcha.
It's this board's decision to follow the code, to follow our professionals. Everything that's provided is reviewed. They bring it to the board makes a decision. That's on every application, not just this. Excuse me. I can't get you on the record if you're yelling from back there. So, Don, I get your point, but thank you. Nothing's closed. Nothing's put away. It's always there.
Okay,
Thank you.
got it. One more quick point, if I may. To the gentleman before who talked about colleges where they study Scripture. My dad spent 4 years at a college where he studied nothing but Scripture for 4 years. He was in a Catholic seminary. I would like us to just make sure that we are not tarring other people for doing exactly the same thing we're doing. That really, and thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Anyone else? You in the back, sir.
Hi, my name is Dane Carmichael. My name is Dane Carmichael. I live on 7 Locust Drive, Greenwood Lake. I'm not going to repeat anything anyone already said, but my wife mentioned to me we're talking a lot about the buses going through there. And I just want it to be added into the record. I haven't heard anyone mention yet. There was a bus accident in Greenwood Lake on East Shore Road just this past year from, coincidentally, this community. But like that, they do have a record of bus accidents here, and on a road like that, we're going to have a lot of more bus traffic. We also have a record of drownings. We had one last year, and right there on Sterling Lake, there's no supervision after 5 o'clock. 200 young men. We all know that's a recipe for disaster. They're going to be up on the North Shore of Sterling Forest, no supervision. No hypotheticals, but it's just... I felt it should be mentioned to the record because these things have happened here very recently, many times, but very recently, just as recently as this year. So
Anyone else?
I hadn't heard it yet.
Anyone else? You in the back, sir.
How you guys doing?
Name, please.
Will Reardon, Roerden. I know some of you, Bo, Bob, good to see you. I don't know everybody, but thank you for everything you guys do for our town. I appreciate it. I've served on a board or two before, and I know it's just volunteer work, and I appreciate you. So that being said, I don't know if there's been anything besides like an environmental kind of study done. What I'm thinking of is the economics of everything 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, because myself, like a lot of people in here, are raising a family in Warwick, and what I'm thinking about is this a positive impact economically on our town, or is it something that could potentially be a negative impact down the road in the future? Maybe not immediately, but I'm looking 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And I haven't heard anybody bring up the economics of a school coming into our town. So I don't know if you guys have any comments on that tonight, or if there's somewhere I can look into that. But that's just what I'm thinking of. And I know it's probably on some people's mind. The environmental issues are a big deal, but there's going to be some type of economic impact to this, because there has to be, right? And so, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Good evening. This is my first board meeting attended. I'm enjoying the process and the civility of everything. Yes, my name is Anka Simon, spelled A-N-K-A, last name S-I-M-O-N. I'm here in the village of Warwick, and an avid enthusiast of Sterling Forest. I don't want to go down. A lot has been addressed. I support pretty much everything that has been stated. I want to share a personal experience and why I'm a bit shaken, and hope that the decision will go for the voices that you've heard today. I appeal to you to please take character of the applicant into your decisions. It's not about a religious background, it's about past behavior of the character of this community. And I want to just use a minute to share an experience that I had on an 8-hour flight with 40 members of this community about 3 months ago. And it was the absolute, sorry, I'm still so upset, absolute disregard of rule and order on a plane at 30,000 feet. Stewardesses could not control them. The pilot could not control them. They were standing in the aisles. They were standing at the restrooms. They were leaning on other flight members' seats. Despite the stewardesses asking them to take their seat, they moved 1 row back. So here I was for an hour with a member of this community leaning on my chair, refusing to go. So it's not about the community as such, it's about the behavior of this character. Use this as guidance from past. Past is an indication of the future. You have to follow code, you have to follow your ordinance, but you do with what you know. Set guardrails as much as you can. You have to follow the law, but what you know about past behavior, set the guardrails where it's, I know it's really tough.
I mean, for this board to even entertain that.
I understand.
I hate to say that, because I could,
But
no, I understand.
I understand, and I wanted to just share that, and again, everything that's been said, so I'm going to take it away from there. I know you don't have an easy job with this.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
At the risk of making another fool of myself, I will see how quickly I can do this. I just wanted to point at a couple of really bad interpretations in the EAF Part 3, Section 3, which is entitled The Impact on Human Health. There's a point there in there's a point there in August 9th, 2017, where there's reference to an asbestos abatement monitoring closure report. That was done by NYU in preparation of closing the building and attempting to sell it. In that same report, they kind of dovetail into the idea that there was an actual abatement, but the abatement was only done on the second floor laboratories in a very small space. The implication in this document makes it seem like the entire building was abated. It was absolutely not, and you know this. Yeah. Okay, I know, and I call you intrepid for doing it, and I hope you had the right masks on, because there's all sorts of stuff. I know what's in there. Okay. I understand, that should have been a huge red flag. Why are they asking that?
Because who knows the asbestos. We
Okay.
did our due diligence to go in there to see what we had to say.
All right, so here's what I want to say in addition to that. Lab cleanup is a very specialized category. You don't get, the lab cleanup team in. It's a whole process. NYU did a very good job, but the LLC that bought this place has left the place in rack and ruin. They had broken windows literally for years. And they also allowed a flood to go on unabated for maybe months. So the result is, whatever the monitoring of the air was at the time that NYU did their monitoring, that's no longer valid.
As Mr. Musso pointed out.
Okay, and
He pointed that out, that we know if it has to be abated, it has to be done with DOT.
That's right.
It has to be done with monitors from the town of Warwick to be on site. We know that there is no way that building, as of right now, everybody's.
it's totally uninhabitable.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Nobody
and,
wants to walk in that building.
no, and, I mean, you can smell the mold from outside. Yeah. So the other thing I was going to point out, which I actually can't believe, like I'm pretty sure I must be wrong about this, all the testing that they did took place in the animal facility. So all these organic chemicals, all these radioactive materials were all done there. That's where the dormitories are going to be. I mean, I can't, that's beyond.
You man in the back, you want to speak? State your name for the record, please.
Lisa Milano, Greenwood Lake. I agree with everything everyone here has been saying overall, but I wanted to speak to the woman who was just before me regarding the character of the group that is seeking this approval. And I want to say just, where have they been? I'm a volunteer with the Trail Conference. I'm in that park all the time. I don't see anybody from this group there helping, maintaining the trails. I clean up litter along 17, and I'm the only person doing that, like bags and bags. So I just wonder if, like, what is the character of this group? They're not, but I'm talking about as far as their sense of the ecology that's already been taking place there. No one is, clearly we're all voicing about the environmental impact, but nobody from this group is saying, hey, we're going to have like mandatory volunteer hours to try to, maintain the trails as they are, So, and also, what is the mechanism here for when they're not abiding all of these like regulations? That's
As every application, if you do a site plan, special use, and you violate your site plan, you just did that, you violate your site plan.
And what
you
happens?
get cited with violations, you go to court, you have your site plan null and void. Correct, Bob?
Right. There's also many town ordinances against littering, garbage, things like that.
okay, and the lighting and
Yeah,
and
has
the
to comply with the town code, everything, same as like Price Chocolate, has to comply.
is there a time frame for when all of the construction is going to be happening?
If it gets approved.
Yeah. Is there like a limit or like?
There's hours of operation in the code that they have to adhere to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. That's been a while, huh?
Yeah. But I've changed what I'm going to say.
although I'll say
State your name for the record, please.
Susan Schur, and I'm
Excuse me, we're not done yet.
my name is Susan Schur, and along with Roger Friedman, I am co-chair of Sterling Forest Partnership. You will read in the first part of the material I sent to you a concern about the fact that the applicant was the group that did the EAF Part 3. I learned tonight that you have, and that seemed odd to me since that's the job of the applicant. I've learned tonight, subsequently, that the planning board has done that. We have not seen that document. Therefore, we've not been able to comment on. What? Okay, it's posted online. It's not been anything that was sent to us as we've foiled information. Oh, okay, so, right, okay, so we will go online.
It will be available.
Okay, yes, and, okay, we will do that, but I want to say something else. For the past 2 years, the board and the consultants have seen several of the members of Sterling Forest Partnership here at all of your meetings. And we have heard and we've been interested in the what of the project. We're interested in the environmental aspect, and we are mostly concerned and feel partly of what's been left out is discussion of the impact on the park itself. You've dealt a lot with the impact on the site, and we're concerned about the park itself. And I think what you've heard tonight, I counted 160 people, and I don't know how many people were out there. I've counted 289 letters that have come to the board. Oh, okay, whoops.
Listen, you're not going to be
Right. It's not on here. It's gone up to 2. That's right. Things change from 1 hour to the next. Yes. So too the petition, which just grows by hour. So you've gotten probably now about 2,000 of them. I don't know in the past hour and a half how many. So that's another group of people that you've heard from besides the partnership people, the people here tonight, the 2,000 people on the petition, the 25 people who live in the residences in the park, the other 150 petitions that have come from hikers. So I'm reminding you that there are a lot of people who are concerned about the impact on the park and feel, okay, but we want to thank you for all of your hard work and your paying attention to the what.
Danielle Sadowski. I have a concern. So I moved to Warwick for a reason. I left Monroe for a reason. I have a 4-year-old. I love the school district here. I love Warwick. It makes me very emotional about what's going on. But I have a question. If they don't get approved for a school and they already own it, what is it going to be for them?
They can't do anything without coming to the school. So if they own it, this is what they obviously want to do. We are in the process, as you heard tonight, and it's been over a year, somewhere not over a year, of the process. As was said this evening, you know, in my tenure on this board, 24 years, it's too long. But with that being said, we've seen numerous projects from, I think, Jim, I don't think he left already. There was a comedy, I grew up in New York. I won't tell you the name.
I'm from Rockland County, so I left
So
there,
anyhow, but the
left
bottom line
Monroe
is,
for
things
a reason.
change. Things change. There's a lot of
No,
people,
but we have,
hold on, a lot of people
Warwick
that are
is-
here are in subdivisions that were farm fields when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So, it has to be done correctly. And I think one of the issues that was brought up tonight to this board, which I can't stress it enough, look at the history of this town of Warwick. This is not just blowing smoke, not talking to the members, to the professionals. I say it on the record, I say it, I mean it, that this board takes every project, not just this project, it's not just this project, we have numerous projects we have to deal with. And we take them very seriously, we follow the code, and we follow everything that has to be done properly. That's what we do. So everybody's voice concern, as I said, I've said it numerous times today. There's a-
And don't forget, we live in this town also.
Yeah, but
And like I said numerous times, getting it on the record is very imperative to me. This was not gonna be, and I applaud everyone here for not applauding, because it makes the difference when our secretary does the minutes, that everything is done factually, and that's what we do. So, thank you for your comments, thank you for your concern. Anyone else wishing to address the board this evening? Yes.
My name's Alyssa Velez, V as in Victor, E-L-E-Z. I wasn't going to speak to... Alyssa, E-L-I-S-S-A, Velez. I wasn't going to speak tonight, so I'm going to be very ill-prepared here. But one thing that has been coming up in little bits and pieces that I don't think has been a big focus is how this is going to impact the residents who live next to them. Case in point, our Airbnb. We have this beautiful Airbnb code. Guess what? It doesn't get enforced unless if the residents discover a violation and not only report it, but you have to have evidence, which requires pictures or this or that or the other thing. It took over a year for the town to enforce their own code on a violation for a dumpster that was out in Pier Site for over a year. So I think that the points that have been brought up are very important, but I think there's also community effects that you guys really need to factor into this decision. If you're gonna have a code, it needs to be cleared. It needs to have like clear repercussions, and there has to be follow through immediately. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so much. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, and thank you guys for letting everyone come up and have a voice. Thank you. My name is Susan Wilbur, and I live in Forest Park in Greenwood Lake. Wilbur? You're welcome. So, I don't know what goes in. It seems like a lot of hard work and decision-making and that's going into this, but I just, when you have a proposal like this, do you guys look at what's going to benefit the registered taxpayers in the area, or is it going to be more harmful? Okay.
That the taxpayers are all part of. We can't arbitrarily say, you can't do this.
Right.
Because if it's a subdivision.
Okay.
Say you're next to a farm, I'll use my farm for example.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to subdivide it.
Okay.
And you live next to it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you may not like that.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
But you can't say to me or to the owner of that farm, well, you can't subdivide that. If I follow all the rules, do everything correctly,
Mm-hmm.
who are you? You know what I mean? Who's the municipality that's in their zoning code that says you can do this? But there is a process, as you all see this evening.
Right.
There's a process. And I'll take my farm off the record, I put it in video, just so we all know that.
Okay.
But with that being said, since I've been on this board, all the farms I grew up with, a lot of them are subdivisions now.
Okay.
Do I think they're done correctly? Yeah, drive through them. They're very beautiful homes,
Mhm.
very beautiful lots, taking care of the things. But the process is this, and this is what we do in every.
Okay. So it would be difficult to, I don't know, to halt it or come to a
To arbitrarily
denial
say no?
to,
No, this board will not arbitrarily say no.
right, so,
But we're going through a process. As I
Right.
said earlier, we're not making a decision tonight on it.
Okay.
We're going to take everybody's information,
Mhm.
disseminate it, and see what's valid, what's not valid, what we can do, what we can enforce. To say, I don't like it because of this, okay, that's fine.
Right.
But that really doesn't hold water in the court of law.
okay. So if something was proven harmful, like with all the literature, you know, that you were given
Not
tonight.
limited to facts.
Okay.
You can't hand me a piece of paper. I don't think Max is our seeker expert. If he tells me, okay, then, yeah, but we vetted this, we'll vet it. But if it
Mhm.
doesn't, if there's something that has to be changed, it goes back to the applicant. If they can't change it, then that's on them, then we will proceed. But if there's something that vets it and it's done properly, we move forward. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this, as you heard this evening. It's not
Mhm.
just a 5-minute deal.
Right. So with all the evidence, I guess you go over with all the evidence that you were presented tonight, and then you come to a decision.
We'll see. I'm not even going to allude what the decision's going to be.
Oh, no, of course
We
not,
don't
sir.
know.
No, but how long will it take you to come to a decision? And then how will the voters be notified? What's that? You? I know, but the voters of, you know, Greenwood Lake, Tuxedo, like Warwick, like when will we?
It's on our website. Every action we do is on there.
Okay, so to look at the website.
Go talk to Roger, he'll know.
Okay.
Your time is up, but thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Michael Hudson. I live in Greenwood Lake. Okay, I've been hearing all the technicalities and things tonight, but what I'd like to know is, with a petition of 2,000 plus people, how much weight does that hold in all this decision-making, whether we go through with this?
Not much.
Not much, okay.
Because we have to follow the code. We have to follow the secret laws. We go from there.
Okay.
I could have 30,000 people come here and say we don't want it. We have to make sure it's done properly. And just to say, Michael Hudson doesn't want it, okay.
Okay.
It's
Okay,
it's not in the code where if we get 30.
The better question may be if we ever approved a project that there were lots of people who were unhappy with it, absolutely. But they followed the code. The applicant followed the code, and the objections that people had didn't rise to the level to call into question the adherence to the code.
Okay.
That's what we're going
Well, I think that we need to know that if we're, we're wasting our time, with the, well, we're voicing, well, I mean, not,
It's not
right.
a waste of time.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is people should know that this petition doesn't hold much weight in the decision that's going to be made. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Let the record, oh, you just made it, come up there. You were fine.
Sorry.
That was
No.
good.
I just have a quick question about
Just
the
take-
traffic study.
state your
I'm
name
about
for
to.
the record.
It's okay. My name is Lauren Vitkovsky, Vitkovsky. I just wanted to know the dates of the traffic study. Because I know the town has a history of doing traffic studies on off hours.
Kevin doesn't have a history with traffic studies anyway.
Hap-
We have a history of reviewing traffic studies from an applicant. We don't do the traffic study. They do the traffic study to our
Right.
specifications, it's reviewed by our professionals.
Right, how the traffic study and how most studies work
Mhm.
is the applicant provides the board with the scope of what they're gonna do, and then if it falls into like an engineering realm.
Okay, so maybe I misspoke. They accept traffic studies given
We
on,
review
right.
traffic studies.
So,
Our professionals
Mhm.
that work for the town, the planning board, review the traffic study. Any questions, comments, concerns from board members, it's vetted.
Mhm.
And if we get a question tonight that relates to that,
Mhm.
we make sure it's done properly.
Right.
That's why, we don't take their word for it. It's vetted by our people.
oh no, I understand the process,
Yeah, okay.
but So what were the dates?
The dates are the times.
Both.
Um,
Were they weekday, weekend, during the anticipated
They were taken,
Excuse me.
commuting times,
hold on. That doesn't reach. Hold on. We can do this. All right, hold on, I got this. But now I lost my place.
Sorry.
Nope, I got it.
You just made, that was good.
I know, I'm really good like that.
The traffic study was done Wednesday, June 21st, 2023 to Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. And the AM peak hour was done 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. The PM peak hour was done from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And the vehicles were monitored, the number of vehicles per day was also monitored.
So was that during the school year? So any students in the area weren't accounted for, and any school buses that travel in the area weren't necessarily
We'll
accounted
check the
for?
dates.
So,
We'll check the dates of this.
Yeah, we can check the dates on that.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, would that be posted on the website, like the answer to that
No,
question?
absolutely not.
Then how do we know what the answer is for checking the dates and things?
We will, the board, you brought it to our attention, we'll check it if you want to check in with our secretary or something.
Okay,
without
great.
doubt.
No, that's
We're
cool.
very accessible.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Anyone? No? All right, let the record indicate there's no further public comment this evening. This board, as I said, we're not taking action this evening. Would the board will close the public hearing for 10 minutes? So moved. Is there a second? Any discussion? The only discussion I'm going to have this evening is to thank the residents that came out. I have to say, for this number of people, the way the decorum you held yourselves to, thank you. We've seen it a lot worse, and you have got your points across, and you did your civic duty. Thank you. So with that being said, there is going to be a 10-day written period. Anything you feel that wasn't addressed, and you don't come up tonight, and you can't sleep after you leave here, email it, get it in writing to us. Connie will take it. Over the writing to the board for questions. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all for coming. I know that. The board's going to take a 5-minute recess to finish the meeting.
Sorry.
I'm very impressed with how the board handles these things.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the help from you.
right, let's go. Let's go.
All right, you gentlemen, we're going to reconvene the meeting, and we're going to discuss other considerations. Ball Farm subdivision, section 1, 4 cluster lots, letter from Kirk Rother, P.E., addressed to the planning board dated 3/26/25 in regards to the Ball Farm subdivision sectionalizing plan requesting a 6-month extension on conditional final approval for section 1 to consist of a proposed 4-lot cluster subdivision situated on tax parcel section block and lot 53-137.2, parcel located on the northern side of Ball Road, intersection of South Street Extension and Ball Road, 56 Ball Road, in the SO zone of the town of Warwick, county of Orange, state of New York. Conditional final approval for section 1 granted on 9/18/24. The applicant has stated that they are working on satisfying the conditions of approval. The 6-month extension becomes effective on 3/18/25. Is there a so move?
So moved.
Discussion. I talked to Kirk today. He's working on it diligently. That's what it is. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Planning board minutes of 2/19/25 for planning board approval.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Planning board to discuss canceling the 4/28/25 work session and the 5/7/25 planning board meeting.
No, let's do this again. So moved.
Is there a so move?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Have a good night, everyone.
Sorry, not you guys. You may go.
According to my last email that I saw, they agreed to extend Capoza's
Yes.
time to adopt to May 7th, which you just canceled. So the question is, have they agreed to extend it to May 22nd?
Why can't we do a motion to deem it incomplete, and then we will give it back to them when having the second meeting in May? Can we do that?
I think if I told them there's no meeting on the 7th, they'll be fine with the 22nd.
You think?
They just want to make sure we're not unnecessarily dragging it out.
We're not, but
Can we make can they make a motion to find it incomplete unless the applicant extends the time period to the 22nd? Is that a valid?
You spoke to the applicant.
Okay.
why can't we just deem it incomplete?
Why don't you keep the meeting on for now?
No, it's
We'll
not-
cancel
We
it
could make
less
a motion
formally.
that if your aunt had ball shoes.
Oh, whoa, we're on the record.
We're on the record.
The motion is, if the applicant agrees to extend it to May 22nd, then we're going to cancel the May 7th meeting.
No.
But then we have to put the May 7th meeting back on. Correct? We just canceled it. Do we need to make a motion to reinstate the May 7th meeting?
Yes.
Someone care to make,
So moved.
hold it. So, someone care to make a motion to reinstate the May 7th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion. This will only happen this,
Say all in favor, say
All-
aye. Aye. All right, now there's another motion. And the motion
hold
will
on,
be-
Bob, hold on. I understand we've been here a long time. There was not even discussion on that. Let's explain why we're doing this stuff, correct?
Yes.
So why we did that is to allow the draft EIS for Capoza. We talked to them today, they asked to be pulled off to May 7th. We just canceled the May 7th meeting. If they agree to the 22nd, we could pull it off again. We'll just set 21st, when the hell ever it is, all right? That's why we did it. What's the other motion you need, Bob?
By what time do we have to pull it off if they agreed to the extension? to the
Tomorrow.
22nd?
Tomorrow. What's your other?
Right, so the motion now, it's a new motion, that will cancel the May 7th meeting if the applicant agrees to extend the deadline to May 22nd.
So we need, you can't so move Bob, so make the motion. Somebody make the motion. No, you gotta say the motion.
We cancel the meeting until,
We can say,
May 7th we cancel.
no.
If.
We will cancel the May 7th meeting after consultation with the applicant for Capoza if they agree to the meeting of May 22nd. Is there a so move? 21st. Is there a so move? Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Hold on.
Oh, now we gotta read all the emails into the record.
Other correspondence?
I think our attorney will do that. Other correspondence, we had an email letter from George Brundris addressed to the planning board in regards to the Geronimo application, And then we have the BMMY College correspondence, emails, written letters. I think there's 292 of them for the record. I know we've all been through it. We will have some more. And again, thank you all. It was a long meeting. There is no one here for privilege of the floor. I entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.